You could have heard a pin drop in the room. The man at the back of the room raised his hand and he said, "I was born in China and I moved to Australia when I was 5 years old. At 18, I moved to Sydney to go to university. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see an Anglo-Australian." Everyone else in that room almost stopped breathing for a second as we took in what he said to us, and as we realized that no one else saw an Anglo-Australian. We were talking at the time about the process of assimilation, what we have to do to fit in and be acceptable in a dominant culture. At the coffee break, he came up to me and he said, with consternation on his face, "The issue is that I've lost my culture." So there's a price to pay for what we have to do to fit in. And when we talk about inclusion, what we say that we want is for people to feel included and to be able to bring their best selves to work. We don't want your whole self, because I'm sure there's pieces of you that you can quite happily leave at home, leave at the door in the morning. But we do want people to be able to bring their best and most authentic self to work. We want to be able to hear diverse voices, to improve productivity, to improve engagement, to improve employee commitment, and to have people feel loyal to the organization, committed to the organization, and really leaning in and wanting to be there. But at a very unconscious level, many of us are taking some of our energy in order to figure out what we have to do to fit into the organization. What is it that we're giving up? I was working with a colleague of mine, a client actually, a senior manager, who was in conversation with his CEO. And in the middle of the conversation, he changed what he was saying because he saw the anxiety on the face of his CEO. And he realized the CEO was not able to hear what he was going to say. Him and I talked about it later. We talked about the price that he pays for not being able to be authentic, to bring his best self, and in that instance to be honest about his position on the subject of race in the workplace, which is what we were discussing. Many of us do assimilate. Women assimilate in order to fit in with a male culture. Men assimilate in order to fit in to whatever they perceive the organizational norms to be. People who are gay and lesbian often assimilate into the heterosexual culture by not wanting to talk about being gay or lesbian, not wanting people to judge them as being gay or lesbian. People always try to assimilate, and it takes up energy. We don't want people to feel included, but the bigger problem in corporations today is the status quo. I use a picture in my keynote of a dog blended into the fabric of the sofa that it's sitting on. And I use that as a metaphor or an analogy for the fact that while exclusion is bad, assimilation and the status quo are actually worse because there's more of it happening. You want people to bring their best selves to work, and you want people to feel committed to what they're doing, committed to you, committed to the organization. You don't want compliance. So assimilation is the second of the 4 permeable forces. And again, there are 3 immutable forces: dominance, unconscious bias, and degrees of difference. There are 4 permeable forces. In other words, if we know about them, we can do a little bit more to mitigate against them. The first one being affinity bias. We can stretch the box, allow more people in, and in this instance with assimilation is we can catch ourselves when we're actually doing too much assimilation, where it's not really productive, and it means we're holding back parts of our personality and we're holding back a lot of our good ideas. So in the next video, we'll talk more about the other two permeable forces.